So you get down some of these paths, and they can be paths of hopelessness. There can be paths that cause people to experience hopelessness. I suspect that many people who show up to therapy are in a place of hopelessness or a place bordering on hopelessness. If we rewind and go back to sort of an earlier place in their life, or maybe a time of great hope, let's say in relation to marriage, what one thing would you encourage someone who is thinking about marrying a person to consider about that person?
I think in doing marriage prep, I think one of the most important principles to learn during marriage prep, it always kills me when these marriage prep programs are built on, like, we're going to teach you everything you need to know about being married. You're like, this is ridiculous. Pope Francis.
It's dishonest, right? It's
very dishonest.
It's not possible.
It's not possible. Pope Francis calls marriage the apprenticeship, right? And so, and people think in discerning and dating, once they get married, once they're at the altar, once they make their vows, they get their diploma, like they made it. And what I tell people is, you just got your acceptance letter. You're now entering in to the university of love. This is your apprenticeship. And you're going to spend a long time until death do you part in an apprenticeship. But the one principle that I think is worth at least introducing so people know what they're saying yes to is, you're the person I'm choosing to be the recipient of my gift of self until death do us part. And whatever that entails and whatever we figure out along the way. So instead of it being like, oh, who's my ideal this, or, my favorite whatever, and do we like to go hiking together, and, you're discerning if this is a person that you believe you can spend the rest of your life dying to. And it means you have to be friends. Like, there should be some level of friendship. There should be some level of shared trust. It's like we're lined up on the same things in life. We want the same thing out of life. But at the end of the day, that's what you're actually making a vow to. Even if this person becomes paralyzed or sick or cheats on you or any of these other things, it's like you signed up, the vow you made is that you're dying to self to this person. You're making a gift of self to this person. So restoring a sense of that sacramentality of what this vow is actually about, I think is really helpful, even in a dating person's life, to start thinking in that way. And that changes the parameters around what they're thinking and discerning who they're actually going to end up marrying.
So what should that person consider about themselves before entering into a relationship like that?
Yeah, I think a person needs to have a certain amount of maturity and a certain amount of self-ownership. So, and I think that age is changing. I think if we look back 100 years, the age of a young man who had maturity and self-ownership is probably much younger than the men we find today. And I think there's a lot to this. It's cultural, it's technology, it's pornography, it's a lot of these other things from the sexual revolution, all that stuff. But what I end up telling young men in college, especially dealing with pornography, culturally, every culture has some mark of entering into manhood. In these old, if you study anthropology, tribes used to send the men out, if you remember the movie 300, it's like he has to go off into the wilderness and battle the beast. And you go kill the beast and then you return home a man because you've overcome this thing and you've proven yourself. I think pornography and masturbation is the beast of our culture. And I think that that's what young men are being invited to go and conquer. And I think very few are coming back victorious. I think very few are even going out to battle. So we have these young men who are really boys not entering into manhood at all. And that lack of maturity And granted, I want to be cognizant of, there's a spectrum here. There's a lot of people suffering with addiction, with abuse, with trauma. There's a lot of things happening in this conversation. But in general, men need to be fighting against this evil. And women, in their own way, have to be fighting against that evil that stands in the breach. And they have to go past it. And then some of that is self-discovery. Some of that is healing from wounds. Some of that is just deepening a sense of self-ownership and self-knowledge. And so we have, and I think this is where mentors come in, spiritual direction, therapy, to have a sense of help along the way. Like, what do you think? Am I ready? Do I know myself more? The family itself is where we're supposed to get a lot of that kind of direction. Have I matured enough to start thinking about making myself a gift to somebody else for the rest of my life?